Imagine Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, stepping into the octagon. What if Tyson, known for his knockout power and ferocity in the boxing ring, decided to take on the best in the UFC? Could he have dominated like he did in the 80s, or would the world of mixed martial arts have been a different beast entirely? Now, I know it sounds like a crazy idea, but hear me out. Mike Tyson was undoubtedly one of the most feared athletes in combat sports history. His strength, speed, and incredible punching power were legendary. But UFC is a whole different ballgame. Boxing and MMA, though both combat sports, are worlds apart when it comes to the type of training and strategy required to succeed. Think about it. UFC fighters are trained in multiple disciplines: striking, grappling, wrestling, and submissions. Tyson, on the other hand, was a master of boxing, specifically the art of devastating close-range punches. Sure, Tyson was a beast in the ring, but would those skills translate to the more dynamic and unpredictable environment of the UFC? First, let's look at Tyson's greatest asset, his raw power. His knockout ability was second to none in boxing, and many believe he could have the same effect in the UFC, especially in the early rounds when fighters are fresh. In the UFC, a knockout punch from a guy like Tyson could send anyone to sleep. But here's the catch. UFC fighters aren't just about power. They're also skilled in dodging, countering, and setting traps. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Tyson's cardio. In boxing, rounds are only 3 minutes long, and Tyson, for most of his career, excelled in explosive bursts of energy. But in the UFC, the fight could stretch to 5 rounds, each lasting 5 minutes. That's a whole new level of endurance. Tyson wasn't known for his long-distance stamina, and we all know that MMA fights require an insane amount of energy, especially if it goes the distance. Would his body hold up for the grind? Let's not forget Tyson's lack of grappling skills. UFC fighters spend years perfecting their ground game, submissions, reversals, and controlling their opponents once they hit the mat. Tyson, on the other hand, was a one-trick pony when it came to close combat. Knockout punches. Would he have been able to defend against a skilled wrestler or submission expert? That's a tough one to answer. But hey, let's not be all negative. Tyson did have a few attributes that could have worked in his favor in the UFC. His strength and explosiveness in tight spaces would make him a monster in close-range exchanges. He was also known for his insane head movement and footwork in boxing. If he could transfer those to MMA, it would give him a serious edge against strikers. Imagine Tyson throwing that uppercut or hook while avoiding a takedown. But the big question is, would Tyson have the mental toughness for the UFC? Boxing and MMA are two very different mindsets. Tyson, especially in the later years of his career, had issues with mental focus and discipline. MMA requires a different kind of perseverance, one that involves adjusting to constantly evolving strategies and maintaining focus through longer, more grueling bouts. Could Tyson in his prime have handled the mental stress and unpredictability of MMA? And let's talk about training. Boxing and MMA are worlds apart in terms of what's required to succeed. Tyson's training regimen was focused solely on boxing, while UFC fighters train in a variety of martial arts disciplines. Even if Tyson was physically able to throw punches in the octagon, would he have been able to keep up with fighters who specialize in wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and Muay Thai? It's a different ballgame. But here's the kicker: Tyson's mindset. Despite the potential hurdles, one thing Tyson always had was an unshakable belief in his abilities. His raw confidence and belief that he was the best in the world could have given him the mental edge in the octagon. Tyson was never one to shy away from a challenge, and if he'd taken on the UFC, it's likely that his mindset could have fueled him through the toughest moments. All right, so here's where I want to thank you for sticking with me. I know this is a lot to chew on, but you're awesome for taking the time to dive deep into this hypothetical question with me. At the end of the day, we'll never know what could have happened if Mike Tyson had transitioned to MMA in his prime. Would he have been a dominant force in the UFC, or would the sport's demands have been too much for him? One thing's for sure, he would have brought a level of excitement and ferocity that the UFC had never seen before. And honestly, that alone would have been worth watching. So, could Mike Tyson have won in the UFC? Maybe. Would it have been easy? Definitely not. But you know what? If anyone could have made the transition, it was probably him. Tyson was, after all, one of the greatest athletes of his generation. His raw power, drive, and mental toughness could have made him a formidable opponent in the octagon. Whether or not he'd become a champion, however, is still up for debate.